All right, welcome to AutoCAD Civil 3D 2013 Essentials Training. In this course, we're going to go through all the functions and features. We're going to talk about the user interface. We're going to talk about importing data. Pretty much everything that we would talk about in a 3-day course that you would get in a live training setting. Pretty much is exactly the same thing except it's recorded, which actually is nice because you can actually rewind, fast forward, stop, pause, try a few things on your own, listen to what I'm telling you over and over again. If you were in a live class, it'd be very difficult to do that. So what we're going to do before we even get started, we're assuming that you're coming into this class with very little knowledge of Civil 3D. You've probably used Land Desktop or you've probably used some other civil design software application. So we're going to go through it, and that's the level we're going to teach at. We're going to teach assuming you know nothing. If you are a 2012 user or 10 or 11 Civil 3D user and you've got some experience with Civil 3D, take a look at our new features R guide. Our new features R guide will talk about the new functionality and features inside of Civil 3D. To get started, I think what we'll do is again, because you're new to this, we want to go through an introductory of what the software is actually capable of doing. So you're going to see here in a short amount of time that I can produce a very, very quick subdivision, a very, very quick road, and the content that goes with it. Now again, keep in mind this isn't everything it can do. This is only enough to show you the highlights of what it's actually capable of and how it kind of works through a workflow. There's more advanced topics, more advanced features. We will actually cover those in other R guides. So again, you're not going to get everything in this one class, so make sure you look at our other R guides. But you will get enough to get started and start producing content, get your feet wet, get comfortable with the product. Okay? So to start with, you'll see here there's a few changes from AutoCAD in the past. As you see, my command line now is one single bar that I can move around, I can dock. I can move it around before, but this actually is a nice little enhancement, new feature to it. The very top, what you have, we're going to start up in the corner here like I normally do. You'll see here is that you have this what we call a menu browser. And in that menu browser, you've got the option for new, open, save, export. Now, the new, it's very important, and the reason I go through this is yes, I can start working in this drawing. I can work in this blank drawing. The problem with that is depending on how your software was set up and installed, and depending on the size of your organization, will depend on if you have standards and styles and stuff already set up in a drawing template. That is critical for starting to use Civil 3D. So you want to make sure that you have that information set up. And it's probably the most time-consuming part of getting the program set up to the way you want to work. But again, for an essentials course, training course, we're going to start with just out of the box what's very simple. But to do that, we want to make sure that you start through that workflow process properly. So you always want to kind of go file, it used to be called file new, but it's actually the menu browser new. Now, I could use these quick new up here, but again, depending on how your software is set up, that quick new may use the wrong drawing template. So I want to make sure that I use the proper drawing template. I'm going to go to new, I'm going to select drawing here, and it's going to come up with a dialog box. And in this dialog box, you can see there's a list of available templates that have been provided and shipped with the software application. You can always start with this one, modify it, and make changes to it. And we'll talk about that through the course of how to set up a style and how to create a label style. Okay? So I'm just going to start with this imperial template because I want to work in units of feet. So by starting with that, I've got basically a blank drawing. All right. What I'm going to show you next is I'm going to walk through importing points. All right. So this is just a kind of a highlight. I'm going to try to keep this to less than 10 minutes, but I'm just going to go through the importing of points and the surfaces. So those of you coming from Land Desktop, you kind of see what's happening and what's going on. In the course, we will go through each step in more detail and at a slower pace. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is I'm going to come up and I need to get some points into my drawing. Now, you can do this a couple different ways, and the one way is to follow the ribbon. Okay, You also want to pay attention to your prospector over there because that's going to kind of help you out as well. But if you follow the ribbon, you can look here at the very top. It says, creating ground data. Then you've got into creating your design. You've got your AutoCAD drawing tools and modify. So we're going to cover that in the user interface section a little bit deeper here in a minute. But I'm going to start with points. And I want to bring points into the drawing. So I could go in, I want to create points. So I could go and say I want to go to my point creation tool. All right. I could start there, or I could go to the Insert tab, because on the Insert tab I want to bring data in. So from the Insert tab you can see that I can automatically go and import points from a file. I can import land desktop data. I can do a lot of other functionalities of bringing data in, other ways of bringing data in, land XML. Okay? So if I go to import points here, I'm bringing points in from a file, which is typically what most firms will do. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to select my file. And I've got this CSV file. It could be a PNT, a TXT, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring that in. I'm going to choose my file format. Now I know this file format is point number, northing, easting, elevation, description. So I'm going to select that format. It's separated by a comma. You can see I get a little preview of what's going on there. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to go ahead and click OK. So now when I do a zoom extents, you can see that I've got points in my drawing. I'm not worried about what the points look like at this stage, but we'll talk about that deeper in the points section of this R guide. But if you do come in here, you can see their X's. Getting them to display with the point number, the elevation, description like you're used to in Land Desktop or the way you've seen in other applications, that can all be done. Okay, it's all done and controlled through the styles. Again, we'll talk deeper about that in a little bit. All right, I just want to go through kind of the workflow functionality, give you a very simplistic overview of Civil 3D. So the next thing I might want to do, after I've modified and got all my points the way I want, is create a point group. So I'm going to come up and I'm going to create a new point group. And the reason I'm creating this point group is I'm going to use these points to create my DTM surface. So I'm going to call this group DTM. You can see here with groups I can apply styles for both the point itself and the label itself. What I'm doing here is I'm assigning no styles. So basically it's going to turn my points off. Where I'm not going to see them, so I really don't need to. But I'm going to create a point group including all the points in my drawing, and I'm assigning a style to those points to basically have no display. Okay, so I look at the point list, you can see all the points in the drawing. I'm going to click OK to that, and you can see the points disappear. They're still in the drawing. I've just told the style to not display them because they're all in this group, and I've turned them off. Again, we'll talk more about point groups in the point section as well. Next, I'm going to get into creating a surface. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to create a surface, and then from my surface dialog box here, I can give it a name. So I'll call it existing ground. And I'm going to choose a style to display the surface. Okay, so again, as I add data to the surface, the style controls what content and what components of that surface are displayed. So if I come in here and I'm going to set the style to 1 in 5 background. So it's just going to give me a kind of a shaded background contour style. I'm going to click OK to that and OK there. And now you'll see here that in my prospector, it's created a surface object. Now you're not seeing any contours yet because we haven't told the surface what data to add. So I'm going to come down to my definition. So again, using this prospector, you can see I switched over to the prospector mode. I've got under definition I've got point groups, which is some of the data I can add. Notice I can add break lines and contours and boundaries and all kinds of other stuff. There's actually some new functionality here for point queries and figure queries if you're using the surveying, importing the data through a survey database. And we'll talk about that in our surveying and mapping course, our guide as well. But I'm going to add this point group called DTM. So when I add that point group, don't have to worry about this. It's just giving me a warning telling me that some points were ignored. They were below, the elevations were below a given limit. So it's just going to give me a nice little warning there. I'm going to click OK to that. And now you can see I've got contours. Now I need to obviously add break lines and edit this surface and do a lot of other stuff to it. We'll cover that in the surface section of the R guide. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring in some data. So again, I'm still on the Insert tab. I'm going to go over and I'm going to actually bring in an Xref, or I'm going to attach an Xref, and I'm going to attach my property line boundary. Now this property boundary is just a polyline in another drawing. I'm bringing it in. I'm going to bring it in at 0, 0. And you can see here that I've got an Xref and I've got a property line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that property line into a parcel object inside of Civil 3D. And I'm going to show you how the parcel functionality also works. To clean this up a little bit, again, making use of my styles, I'm going to pick my surface object and I'm going to go into the surface properties. I'm going to select it from the ribbon this time. And in the surface properties, again, simply by changing the style to border only, what I'm doing is I'm turning off the contours. Notice I'm not dealing with layers, I'm not managing layers, I'm just turning off the contours themselves by changing the style assigned to that surface. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to go back to my Home tab and I'm going to create parcels. I can create parcels using the parcel from objects or from the layout tools, and we'll show you a little bit of both here. From a parcel from objects, I can use lines, arcs, polylines. I can convert lines, basically I can use lines, arcs, and polylines. Or notice I can go right from the Xref. So I'm going to go X for Xref, and I'm going to pick this one of the lines, and I'm just going to do a window around the rest of the lines to make sure I get them all. And when I right click, it's going to come up, it's going to ask me for my site, my parcel's label style, and I can even put labels on the segments themselves. So I'm going to go click OK to that, and now you can see that I've got a parcel with properties, I got labels on the lines. Again, very simplistic, maybe not the way that you're going to go through your workflow, but just showing you the functionality that this has. Now that I have that parcel, I can do other things. I can make an alignment, I can subdivide this parcel. So I'm going to show you a couple different other functionality here as well. I'm going to go up and I'm going to do an alignment. And I'm going to create an alignment using layout tools. I could use a polyline and convert that polyline to alignment, but if you get used to the layout tools, they're much easier to use throughout the application. So I'm going to choose my alignment and I'm just going to call it Main Street. So you can see I can give it a name right here, call it what it is, alignment A, alignment B, road 1, road 2, whatever. I'm going to put it in the same site as my parcel so that this alignment splits this parcel in half because I'm creating a new subdivision, let's say. So I'm going to go and I'm going to choose the major and minor only labels for this particular alignment, and I'm going to choose a style to display the geometry of the alignment the way I want to see it using this layout tool. Or layout style. So I'm going to click OK. And now on my toolbar here, I've got these toolbars that I can use to create all kinds of different alignment segments and components, whether they're lines or curves. But I'm going to use the tangent with curve tool, which is probably one of the easiest ones. And it's going to ask me for a starting point. So I'm just going to pick a point over here. And it's asking me for my next point. So I'm just picking where my PIs are. And when I select my PIs, you can see that it's automatically fitting a curve in between the two tangents. Okay, so again, this curve setting is done up here. So it's putting in a minimum curve with a 200-foot radius in between those two tangents. It's kind of nice is if the tangents aren't geometrically set up properly and that curve can't be created, it won't create the curve. It'll still put the tangents in, but not create the curve. Again, we're going to talk more about alignments and their features and functionalities here in a little bit. Just to kind of clean this up a little bit, there it is, so you can see the curves. I'm going to change the color. All right, so we're just going to make it an orange color here. So you can see where my orange is, my curve, my tangent segment's in red. Kind of get to see that a little bit better that way. All right, so now that I have an alignment, notice it split my parcels in half. I can come up and I can create other parcels such as a right-of-way parcel. So I can select these two parcels, and with the right-of-way parcel I can tell it that I want a 50-foot right-of-way. I want to clean it up at the boundaries. I can also clean up at intersections if I had another alignment coming through here. Okay, so you can see it's created a right-of-way or a segment parcel on both sides of the alignment. All right, so it's got a frontage boundary now for my property here. What I'm going to do next, I'm just going to use my parcel creation tools And I'm going to use this tool here just to draw in a segment line going from this corner here, and I'm going to just go ahead and bring it in over here. Now again, there are some tools that will allow me to better define this this functionality, or this bearing. I've got transparent tools over here behind me that will draw those by bearing and distance, angle and distance, all kinds of other functionality inside the software. So there is precision input. I'm just picking things quickly here. Okay, but notice when I added that line, it actually added or created a parcel in that section right there. Okay, now if I go back up and I go to my parcel creation tools, I've got my automatic sizing tools. In my automatic sizing tools, I can do the create slide line create, where I can come up in here and I can choose the area of my parcel. I can choose my minimum frontage and other properties such as the frontage offset, the multiple solution preference. A lot of different parameters I can set here in this dialog box. Once I set the parameters I want, I select the parcel I want to subdivide. I define my frontage along the along that parcel line where I want my calculations to be made. I specify an angle for my parcel lines, or I can go bearing and azimuth. And then it gives me a nice little preview showing you the parcels that I've created in my drawing. If I like those results, I select enter, and now I've got a subdivision subdivided with parcels. I can come in and put my labels on it, bearings, distances, so on and so forth. Okay, so again, parcels, very simple to create, very easy to use. Okay, moving on, I want to profile the center line of this road. Now I could have done this before I did my lots. I could do it after. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going through this this workflow here. The nice thing about Civil 3D is when you pick an object, you'll notice up top that it knows that it's picked in alignment. So I picked this object. I've got this context sensitive ribbon up above. It's showing me that it is in alignment, and I've got tools that I can add labels. I can go and modify the geometry. I can analyze it. Also on the end, right here, I got the launch pad. The launch pad kind of steps you to that next step. What might you do next with this alignment? Maybe you want to do an offset alignment. Maybe you want to create an intersection or a corridor. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to create the surface profile. So again, this is just like taking your alignment, sampling across your existing ground to create a profile view along that alignment, or in some countries, or some people call them long sections. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to click on add. So what I've done here is I've sampled the alignment along with the surface across, the alignment across the surface, creating a surface profile. I'm going to go ahead and draw it in a profile view. It's going to come up. I have a wizard that's going to walk me through the properties and the steps of creating this view, picking the styles and all the other parameters. I'm just going to go ahead and say create profile view. And I'm going to drop in my profile view right about here, and you can see that it's created the profile grid with the surface profile in the middle. Now again, this is dynamically linked, so if I was to come up here and select this alignment, if you watch the profile, as I move this alignment around, okay, notice the profile changes and updates. Okay, so the alignment is linked to the profile. The profile is dependent on the alignment. It's also dependent on the surface because this is a surface profile. So again, this is part of that whole model-based design concept. And you're hearing more about BIM, and you've heard about it for a while. This is model-based design. You're building basically a model, and the software reacts accordingly. Now that I have that profile view, I'm going to come up here to this profile grid. Same concept here. Notice I don't have to know where the create profile tool is. I don't have to know where the command is in a drop-down. All I have to do is pick the graph, the grid, because I know that a profile for a design needs to be on that graph. So by picking the graph, my context-sensitive ribbon up above shows me on the launch pad the profile creation tools commands. So again, it's kind of stepping you through the workflow. So if I come over here I've got my create, draw, or profile, draw new. It gives me my name. I can choose my style. So I'll choose layout again. I can choose my label set and click OK. I get another toolbar. This toolbar, just like my alignment toolbar, provides all the functions for creating a vertical profile or a design profile. Again, I've got draw by tangents, tangents with curves, curve settings. I can do all kinds of other operations to this to create this profile. I'm going to use simple one, draw tangents with curves. I'm going to pick here as my starting point. I'm going to put in a couple of PVIs here. We'll just do a few simple ones, keeping it very, very shallow. You can see it adds in my curves. I can come in and I can grip edit my PVIs so I can change that design or that layout profile. All right, so I know where my curves are. I've got my labels up top. You can manipulate these and move them around the way you want. Turn off my snaps, make it a little easier. So now I have a design profile. All right. Again, if I don't like the way it looks, the display, it's all based on the style. The style is a property of the object. So I'm going to change its style. And now you can see that it gives it a different look just by changing the style. So again, styles control everything, and you're going to hear us say that throughout the entire course. All right. So now I've got my profile. The next step would be to create my maybe my corridor model. Now with my corridor model, I have these sub-assemblies. These assemblies and sub-assemblies make up your cross-section of your road. There's a lot of different sub-assemblies. These here are common assemblies used for intersections and roadways. But then you've got all these different tabs for basic, for different lanes, for different shoulders, for different curbs. You've got kind of a whole gamut of functionality or different sub-assemblies, a whole different set of them. So I can go to daylight. I got generic ones. There's retaining walls, trench pipes, bridge and rail, all kinds of different sub-assemblies in here now. Okay, so I'm just going to go back and I'm going to use the assembly, basic assembly here. And when I drop in this assembly, I'll show you just picking a point in the drawing where it's at. I'll give you a little preview of what it looks like. You can see there it's got my lanes, curb and gutter, sidewalk, and it's going to daylight out. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to create the corridor. The corridor basically is the road, basically the road network. Okay. And it's going to create the model of the road based off of my horizontal alignment, my layout design profile, and the subassembly. So if I use the corridor tool up on my ribbon, I'm going to create the corridor. New dialog box for 2013, very nice. I can just select the alignment I want. I'm selecting the profile that I want to use. I want to make sure I use my design profile. I can choose the assembly that I want for basically the main road. Again, this is a very simplistic road. When you really get to the corridor modeling, you're going to have different assemblies, different regions. It's something that in itself you could spend a few days just getting taught on that. So again, nice new feature here. Kind of picks everything. I want to set my target. So my target is going to be my existing ground, so that's going to daylight to the existing ground. I can actually have it set the baseline and region parameters as well. So if I click OK to this, it's going to bring up a dialog box, and in this dialog box, this is where I can come in and I can create and change and add different regions. Okay, again, this is a very simplistic road. We're not going to get into creating regions and different assemblies and stuff. We'll cover that in our corridors R guide. We go much deeper into the corridor modeling in that particular guide. Okay, so here I can change things if I want. I'm just going to click OK to this. Little message is going to pop up. Rebuild the corridor, and now you'll see that I've got a corridor and a model on my drawing. I got to make some adjustments here real quick because my corridor model is going outside my surface, so therefore it's not finding the proper information to daylight to. So I'm just going to bring this back. And now that I have it back into my site, I can go in and by simply right-clicking on it, I can go ahead and create a corridor surface. The corridor surface is going to give me contours. So by creating a corridor surface and using the codes that are coded into the assemblies, I can also create a boundary. I'll go ahead and rebuild the corridor, and now you'll see I've got contours on my corridor model. So that quickly I've taken an alignment and a layout profile and an assembly, and I've built a road model with a surface. If any of those components change, this surface will update automatically. Again, the model much more powerful than ever was in Land Desktop or any other design application. Now that I have that, I can do other things. I can do more grading features. So if I want to grade the lots, I've got feature lines that I can do that with. I got grading tools to daylight these feature lines. I can create intersections if I was going to put an intersection through here, roundabouts, so on and so forth. All right, so you got roundabouts as well. Notice with very simplistic tools, I didn't go through all the tools up on the ribbon, but look how much content I've created. So it's just kind of this workflow of picking the object, looking at the context-sensitive ribbon, looking at the launch pad. Getting yourself comfortable is going to be I think the hardest part. Getting things to look the way you want is all based on your styles and your settings. So that's something else that needs to be set up and configured. But don't let that scare you away from learning the product and the application. Again, what I'm going through here is very simple. You can see it's very intuitive, very easy to use. Okay. I can add pipe networks. New features with 2013 is pressure pipes. So you can add water lines, gas lines, so on and so forth. I'm going to create a real quick sanitary alignment here. So I'm going to use a sanitary sewer. I'm going to choose my surface so that it sets the rims on that surface. I'm going to choose the alignment I want to use. I could put labels as well on these. I'm just going to click OK though. And again, the whole concept, you pick the command, you set up your parameters, your styles. You've got the toolbar here. I can come in here now, choose my parts, and I could come in and tell it that I want to draw in either from the downslope or upslope. I'm going to draw in pipes and structures. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm just going to drop in a few structures. So I'm dropping in a sanitary manhole there, and we'll come down the road, we'll drop in another one there. Let's put in one more over here. So now that I've got that pipe network and profile, I can go up to my ribbon, or my graph here, select my graph, and from the launch pad again, I can draw parts and profile. So I'm going to come down here, I'm just going to grab that pipe, or I could grab the structure. I'm going to right click and select enter, and then I'm going to pick that graph again, and you'll see it draws in the pipes in my profile view. Again, how they look, I can modify and change. I have all that capability to do so. Okay. Now that I've got my design, I just want to dress it up, add more labels. You can do all that. You've got the full functionality of AutoCAD. So I can go to my layout tab, and on my layout tab, I can come in here and put in my title blocks. I can set my scale, so I can go into my viewport here and zoom down into my drawing, and I'll just do a quick little regen. Now I'm trying to fit this whole project on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, so I'd have to actually change my layout tab size. But while I was here, I wanted to show you with the new features of AutoCAD in Civil 3D, I've got some nice new elements for layouts. I've got a legend and a north arrow, and I can put in a reference system. I can put in certain display maps. So there's a lot more functionality inside of 2013 that will really help with the production end of your projects and your drawings. Okay. So again, keeping it simple, going through this, I haven't touched on everything. We're going to get deeper into the application. We're going to start with the user interface. We're going to work through points. We're going to go into styles, surfaces. We'll talk more about alignments and profiles and parcels and all the way through pipe networks. We'll go through them a lot deeper than we did in just this brief overview. So take this as a little guided tour, showing you what it can do. We're going to get deeper, like I said, into each part of the functionality, creating styles and whatnot in the rest of this R guide. All right, so take a break. Let's go and download the data set. Make sure you have that, and then get your software set up, ready to roll. And we'll start off with the user interface next.